Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's historic weather video. So, wow, what an event this is. I have not done a historic weather video since Christmas Day last year, 2022. With everything that's been going on, this year I have not had time and been able to do any historic weather videos, but this August Bank Holiday Monday we're going to do one for you, and it's quite a big one as well. We're looking at winter 1928, 1929. It was a cold winter this, and you'll see how it all worked out in a moment. There weren't many cold winters between 1895 and 1940. There were a couple, about three really, but were properly cold winters. 1908, 09, 1969, 17, and this one that we're going to do today, 1928, 1929. So we're going to have a look and see how all of that worked out for you. Sit back, relax, and enjoy, and it's going to be an interesting watch. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. Just say that the first video was our 6 AM upload, and of course, as it is Bank Holiday Monday, we won't be doing a 10 to 14 day, but all the regular vids will be back with you tomorrow. Please like, share, subscribe videos. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. And just to say a big thank you to the two resources that have helped, so much with this and all the historic weather videos. The first one, of course, is the archive of historic weather charts at weathercentral.de, and the second resource is Trevor Harley's personal weather website. You can find a link to both of those websites in the description with the video. You can while away many a bank holiday, rainy bank holiday Monday, have a look at the archive of charts, historic archive of charts, and also the information on Trevor Harley's personal weather website. Thank you so much to Weather Central and also to Trevor. Well, I reckon we're going to do it then. Shall we do it, everyone? Shall we do our first historic weather video since Christmas? Why not? Last Christmas even. Why not? Let's do this. So we're going to begin on the first day of September. So although this, of course, is like for the winter of 1928, 1929, I always like to start in the autumn, because I do think that very often the colder winters, we'll get little teasers, through the autumn. So I always like to see whether there has indeed been a teaser. So we're going to begin through the autumn. So we're going to begin on the first day of meteorological autumn, 1928. That is Saturday, the 1st of September, 1928. Now, of course, the problem with going so far back is that there is a little bit of a dearth of information. So, for example, when we get to December, all I've got to go on there is a CET number. So it really, I'm going to have my work cut out trying to interpret the charts. We have got quite a bit of information for February. When we get to February, we've got quite a bit for that. But this one, not all that much information for September 1928. So all we've got is a very sunny and dry month over England and Wales. Apparently it got to 85 Fahrenheit, 29.4 Celsius was recorded at Camden even on the 8th. It was the sunniest September since 1910 across England and Wales, and since 1906 in Edinburgh. Has a central temperature of 12.8, so despite having that hot day that we're going to see in a moment on the 8th, actually the overall central temperature is a little bit below average. Right then, quite a coolest September. Right then, so begin on the first day of September under an area of high pressure. We're high and dry here as we start September 1928. Upper air temperature is quite cool though, so that is a pretty cool ridge. Right, so let's extend through. We go through to the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th of September. Low pressure in the Atlantic, trying to break down the high pressure, but high pressure is maintained to our south and southeast. We are drawing some quite warm air actually into the south with that area of high pressure. And low pressure pushes through, or tries to, the Atlantic around the 5th to the 6th of September before high pressure again building out to the east, trying to fend off this deepening area of low pressure. A little bit of seesaw going on here, a little bit of a battle between high pressure to the south and east and low pressure to the northwest. We have got quite a bit of hot air sitting just to our south there. This is a hot day, but we get to 85 Fahrenheit, around 30 degrees, down across southern areas. That's how it happens. So high pressure to the east, low pressure out to the northwest, we draw some very warm air up from the south. Got plus 15 Celsius isotherm there, getting ever closer to southern parts of the country. Also, it's a bit unstable though. Whether that's tree of thunder, I don't know. Trevor High doesn't state or specify, but by the 9th of September, we're cutting off that hot air from the south as we bring in this area of low pressure. Obviously, that's got much cooler and fresher air associated with it. High pressure comes back again though as we get through to the 11th, 12th of September. So it doesn't look like quite an anticyclonic September, I have to say. Upper air temperatures are quite a bit cooler though with this particular ridge of high pressure, so we're not back to excessively hot temperatures. But it does look as though this was a pretty dry September. Plenty of anticyclonic temperatures. A nice ridge there from the Azores all the way up to northern parts of Europe for the middle part of September. Then the high pressure just beginning to weaken a little bit as we go into the second half of the month. Not for long though, it's back in again as we get through to the 21st, astronomical autumn. This time it is a cooler ridge though. The upper air temperatures, they cool down quite a bit, probably kind of a little bits of ground frost in the north and east. So that's the reason I suspect that despite having that hot day, or hot spell earlier on in the month, and despite being a very anticyclonic September, actually the overall central temperature is a bit below par. It's probably due to some quite cold nights through this period under this area of high pressure. High pressure beginning to pull more towards Greenland and Iceland there on the 23rd of September, just allowing something a bit cooler to start moving in to eastern parts of the country. I start to look a little bit more unsettled, but going into the last week of the month, high pressure away to the northwest, low pressure in the southern North Sea, jumping to pull in some cooler air from the northeast, and maybe some showers coming into the east and northeast as well. But it does look quite cool now as we go into the second half of September. And interesting that the high pressure is going northwest. That's what we call retrogression. Is that a little teaser for what's going to happen in the cold winter? I wonder. It's moving up to Greenland now. This is 26th of September, where it looks like we're poised to start pulling in some colder air from the north. Low pressure is starting to move in from the south. So this begins to turn not only much cooler, but also much wetter as we come into the closing days of September 1928. So although quite a dry month overall, now it's starting to look significantly wetter with this area of low pressure coming in from the south. That brings rain particularly to more southern parts of the country. That's how long as we get to the final day of September 1928. High pressure's away to our west, low pressure in the North Sea. We're pulling in the wind from what looks like a very cool, rather chilly, maybe even slightly cold north or northeasterly point. So we go on into October, and this is going to be a quiet and warm with southerly winds at first, but then will become wet and windy, apparently. It has a central temperature of 10.1, so that's about average, especially for the year. For the modern day, probably a little bit below par, but for this era, that's probably about average, not as cool to average as September was. We begin with high pressure dominating. The high pressure beginning to move away to the east now. We've started to pull up this much warmer air from the south once again. Having the upper air temperatures, they're starting to lift up with plus 10 Celsius from getting closer to southern parts of the country. That high pressure slips away to eastern Europe, and another little ridge builds up from the southwest there on the 6th of October. So the high pressure doesn't want to release its grip yet. It's still standing its ground, but overall we come to the 8th of October. High pressure is increasingly being squeezed away eastern parts of Europe by these areas of low pressure in the Atlantic, and this now looks like we're turning into a much more unsettled type pattern. We've got some high pressure here building on the 10th of October to our north and northeast. That's a bit of a blocking feature. Could that be a teaser for the winter? I wonder. Low pressure being pushed southwards with projections. This is quite a cool wet pattern for the south anyway, but we're going into for the middle part of October. There's the remains of a tropical storm or hurricane just there, interestingly. We go on into the middle part of the month, looking a bit warmer, pulling wind up from a southwesterly direction, low pressure again, Iceland and Greenland, high pressure to our south and southeast. And low pressure and deepening into the second half of the month, beginning to go a little bit stormy actually. This is 20th of October. Looks like we've got a bit of an Atlantic storm going there with strong winds and gales and whatnot. Further low pressure being more wet and windy weather weather through the 23rd, 24th of October, and staying unsettled then as we go to the closing days of the month. But low pressure going to get pushed southwards though by this ridge of high pressure. That's sending projection with low pressure southwards. That's interesting. Diving low, moving southwards there. Before the next area of low pressure comes in. So that's the 30th of October, just classically wet and windy really with that one. Again, as that clears away, got a little bit of a ridge building in the Atlantic side to pull wind in to the north and to the northeast too. That takes us through to November, which starts quiet with easterly winds. There were notable gales on the 16th, 23rd and 25th, which caused some structural damage. So this sounds like it's going to be quite a stormy month. A CT of 7.6, which is quite mild, really quite a mild November. So that's how we begin November 1928 with high pressure wind to the northwest, winds in from an easterly direction. So it looks like we have quite a coolish start to November 1928 actually. Notice heights are relatively high to the north between Iceland and Scandinavia. That area of low pressure over top of the country. And as we go on to bonfire night, we find that low pressure again just being blocked by this area of high pressure. So the patterns, although not overly dramatic, the patterns through this autumn are quite interesting. It's quite a bit of blocking that's going on. High pressures in interesting positions in all three of the autumn months actually could well be a teaser for what's ahead in the winter. So that's how it looked on the 6th of November 1928. I don't suppose it's particularly cold, actually it's quite mild with that, but the pattern is interesting. Above average heights, high pressure in Iceland bringing down to north of Scotland, low pressure being held at bay out in the Atlantic Ocean and whatnot. And that low pressure gets forced all the way down towards Biscay actually there on the 7th of November by this blocking area of high pressure. Cold air beginning to dig into Scandinavia as well. Right, so we are going to get some windstorms as we go into the second half of the month. At the moment, it all looks relatively abnormal, but now we're beginning to revert back to more of a west-southwesterly pattern. High pressure starting to slip southwards in towards France, low pressure deepening in the North Atlantic. That's beginning to drag in these mild southwesterly winds. So we're turning much more unsettled Atlantic driven now as we move into the middle part of the month. That's 14th of November, wet and windy weather sweeping in from off the Atlantic Ocean there. Moving through into the middle of the month, so that's the 15th, again, low pressure dominating the weather from off the Atlantic Ocean, and this is going to be our first gale force wind. This area of low pressure here on the 16th, that's bringing stormy weather, particularly across more southern parts of the country. Going a little bit cooler, so that low pressure exits away. As well. And then on into the 18th of November, another push of very mild southwest winds with that particular area of low pressure and whatnot. And you're going to keep this Atlantic onslaught going, I think, the right way to the second half of the month. So this is our next storm, 23rd of November, that low just there, bringing further gale or severe gale force winds, bit of a battering across many parts of the country. It's not done yet though, because another storm system sweeps through there on the 25th. That turns the wind into the north. That's cold as well. Showers will turn wintry across more northern parts of the country. No doubt all three of those storms will be named if they happen now. Right, well, you came out. So now we're going into the closing days of November 1928 in a cool northerly wind, or quite a cold northerly wind. Let's have a look at the upper air temperatures. Yeah, I've got -5 Celsius ice around through the country. So not particularly cold, but it's our first sort of northerly shot of the winter. All the high pressure then builds back up from the southwest, turns us drier and milder as we get to the end of November 1928. Right, so that's the autumn done. Now let's move into the winter, what we're here for. So this is how we begin the cold winter of 1928-1929, first day of December, and a fairly benign looking chart with high pressure to our southwest ridging in to the west of Europe. That's a relatively mild ridge as well. Upper air temperatures looking pretty mild there. All I've got to go on for December 1928 is the CT, which is 3.4. That's all, all the information I've got. So, you know, it's going to be a surprise. We'll find out together what happens with this month. But Trevor Harding doesn't have much information. It looks like we started on relatively dry and mild. Now, of course, this is a long time ago, though. So these ridges that today would be mild ridges, and we'll probably get temperatures into double-digit temperatures. Temperatures into double digits. Back then, you know, they could have been considerably colder due to fog and whatnot. So that's why it's something to bear in mind. It's probably not as mild under these areas of high pressure from the Azores as it would be today back in this area. Nevertheless, it looks like quite a mild start to December 1928 and wet and windy up in the north. Now, what's going to happen? Well, we get through the 6th, 7th of December, high pressure pulls back out into the Atlantic, and down comes our next northerly shock. This one's a little bit colder than the one from November. So, not desperately cold, but it's colder than November northerly, and probably kind of bring snow showers into northern and eastern parts of the country. High pressure's toppling, though, allowing mild air to come back in from off the Atlantic. So we're turning milder, wetter and windier here as we get through the 10th of December. Low pressure, quite deep low pressure actually, digging in from off the Atlantic. We are relatively mild, drawing the wind up from the south, but it's an unusual pattern that, with high pressure building over Scandinavia and forcing the jets in southwards. So it looks like our first Scandinavian high going now. Cold air, not particularly cold air, but cold air is sitting to our east, and the wind's turning into this east-northeasterly. So this is our first easterly of the winter, around the 10th, 11th, 12th of December. So low pressure gets pushed southwards, the high pressure builds over Scandinavia. This is a semi-permanent feature through this winter, I think. I mean, there's quite a lot of easterly winds. We'll find out. In comes a -5 Celsius isotherm. That's enough to bring snow showers into particularly eastern parts of the country on those cold easterly winds, and certainly some significant overnight frost as well. By the way, the CT at 3.4 is not particularly cold. For the era we're in right now, it would be considered quite a cold December, but I expect back then not all that cold, probably not too far from average. That's 14th of December, still bringing in those cold easterly winds. Looks like there's a bit of an upper level trough there in the east with kinking the isobars, probably indicating some more general snow moving in from the east on those cold easterly winds. Begin to lose the easterly by the 15th of December. The high pressure begins to retreat a little bit. Lower pressure coming in from off the Atlantic. That might have brought some snow with it as this weather system comes in off the Atlantic. Also got mild air behind it, so we're turning milder now into the middle part of the month. This system pushes through, taking probably snow and then milder air following in from behind with a 4. High pressure then comes back in, so relatively dry into the second half of the month, but milder. Winds are coming up from a west or a southwesterly direction. We're heading towards Christmas. 1928, looking relatively mild, wet and windy. So that's Christmas Eve. Quite a wet and windy and relatively mild Christmas Eve. You'll notice across most parts of the country there's a weather system streaming across the country taking rain, and that'll be followed by showers. That's Christmas Day, looking rather wet and windy. Another low coming in off the Atlantic Ocean. Big warm sector with that. So although it's a cold winter, actually it has a mild Christmas, as many cold winters tend to do so. Beyond Christmas, in the no man's land between Christmas and New Year, we've got low pressure still coming in from off the Atlantic. Heights begin to rise to our north, begin to force the low pressure southwards. Now we're heading up towards New Year and we're turning colder now. Very quickly after that very mild Christmas, we're turning colder for New Year. High pressure setting up around Iceland. Low pressure being pushed southwards. The upper air temperature show cold air digging in with that area of low pressure. Probably rain and snow with that area of low pressure. That's New Year's Eve itself in a cold east or northeast wind, especially so for England and Wales, and no doubt dragging in snow showers for New Year 1928, 1929 into the south and the southeast of the country. We'll pause the video there. You go off and stretch your legs, and when we come back, we're going to go into the main part of this cold wind. Haven't seen that much cold yet, but it is going to get more interesting, so hang in there. do January and February in the second part of the video, and you'll see how cold it's going to get. I shall see you soon. Okay, we're back and we're ready to resume our historic weather video looking at the winter of 1928-1929. If you've enjoyed the video so far, then please can you like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much everybody for doing that. This video will be placed within the historic weather videos playlist at YouTube. So we've got loads and loads of historic weather videos that we've done over many bank holiday Mondays over many years. So please check out the playlist for the GavsWeatherVids historic weather videos. You can find that on our YouTube homepage. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, so where we ended, let's resume the video. Where we ended before the break was with New Year 1928, New Year's Eve 1928. So now into January 1929. This is a very cold month. It has a central temperature of just 1.3. So it is a mostly cold month with easterly and also with northerly winds. Let's see what happens. We begin January 1929 on a cold and wintry note with high pressure just to our west, pulling in these northerly, northeasterly winds, upper air temperatures. Not cold as they are on New Year's Eve, but still cold enough to bring snow showers, I would have thought, into eastern areas of the country in particular. The high pressure then goes towards Scandinavia, still maintaining cold weather, although the upper air temperatures are lifted up in the north, but it's still pretty cold. Those east winds down in the south. Certainly some hard overnight frost. There will be snow on the ground after the earlier east winds, especially so in more eastern areas, so that will keep the temperatures pretty cold as well. Mounts the 4th through to the 5th of January, a proper Scandinavian high, winds coming in from the east once again. Our temperatures not excessively cold, but bear in mind, again, we're probably quite snow covered across large parts of the country by this point. And so, although the upper air temperatures aren't cold, on the surface, I reckon this is probably very cold. And we're probably having ice days, I would have thought, at this point in some parts of the country. So we're moving through to the 7th of January. We begin to lose the easterly, still maintaining anticyclonic influence, and still with quite cold air sitting over the country within that anticyclone as well. Into the second week of January, that's how we're looking. So high pressure is dominating the weather. We're going into a quieter period now. Probably, I would have thought, with this, a lot of fog would be likely. Upper air temperatures aren't as cold as they have been, but it's hardly mild. And I reckon for this era, this would be a classic scenario for fog, maybe even for smog under this area of high pressure. I don't know if there was a smog during the winter of 1928-1929, but if there was, that would be like a classic sort of scenario that would cause it, I would have thought. So high pressure maintained as we go through the 12th of January 1929, looking not overly cold from a synoptic pattern or from an upper air temperature pattern, but I reckon that would be probably a very cold scenario with a lot of fog, maybe smog as well, and overnight frost. Bear in mind, probably still quite a bit of snow on the ground. Now that's the 13th of January. The high pressure begins to pull out towards Iceland and Greenland. This deepening area of low pressure digging into northern Europe. That's bringing the first shot of extreme cold air into northern Europe. Look at those upper air temperatures you see. Very, very extremely cold air digging in across the northern parts of Europe. We're on the periphery of that, very close to pulling it in, but really severe now across many parts of Europe. This will be by far the coldest phase of winter so far for much of Europe. That's the 14th of January, when most of Europe has been absolutely plunged into the freezer. We have turned cold again with those northerly winds, but the coldest, most severest of the air actually sitting to the east with what looks like what we would term now as the polar vortex sitting across northeastern parts of Europe. That looks cold and snowy. That's 15th of January. So high pressure in the middle of the Atlantic going up towards Greenland. And we are bringing in like a north or northeasterly wind. Most of Europe is absolutely frozen, snow covered at this point, and I reckon this is starting to drag in snow, probably more particularly to the north and the east on those north or northeasterly winds, but that does look like a very cold and wintry middle part of the month. That's the 16th. Most of the severest of the cold air is being kept away to our east, but we have got -10 cells ice out into the west. So we have been plunging into very cold air. It's sub-zero at this point, and again, probably bringing snow showers in particular into eastern parts of the country. But we're getting away a bit rather lightly, I have to say, compared to what most of Europe would be getting, which would be extreme, severe cold and lots of heavy snow with these various areas of low pressure. Look at those upper air temperatures, they look bitterly cold in northern and eastern parts of Europe. Now the 17th starts to lose that cold northerly, and low pressure out to west is combining with high pressure which is slipping south towards the Alps to drag up something a bit milder from the southwest. So all of a sudden we start to introduce milder air from off the Atlantic. Again, there's probably a warm front or something involved in that might deliver snow, maybe freezing rain. Who knows, it's too far away to know. But certainly behind that it's beginning to turn quite a lot milder. By the 19th, all of the cold is gone, and we're drawing up like this southerly type flow. Look how mild it is now, because most parts of Europe, the cold air is retreating away to the far eastern part of Europe and is plunging down in towards Greece and whatnot. So looking a lot milder into the second half of January, although this is 22nd, and notice again, high pressure is beginning to try and reform to the north, so high pressure trying to have a go turning us cold again. That is the 23rd of January, high pressure returning to Iceland, between Iceland and Scandinavia. We try and have a go at pulling the wind back into the east and the northeast again. Cold air is lurking up to our northeast. What's going to happen this time? It's going to turn colder again by the look of it. 24th of January, cold air beginning to move back in on those east or northeasterly winds. Proper blocking area of high pressure. Wow, wow, wow. In the northern latitudes there on the 25th of January. Big blocking high around Greenland. And again, cold air is plunging southwards across much of Europe. We're back into the cold air again. Again, the coldest of the air is over Scandinavia and like central parts of Europe. But some of that is being drawn in. It's probably cold enough again for more snow. But probably snow from that little area of low pressure there that is sitting in the North Sea. Look how blocked it is by the 26th of January. Masses of northern blocking from Greenland all the way back towards Russia. That looks absolutely classic, doesn't it? For a cold and wintry month. Upper air temperatures look like that. So again, the severest of the cold air being kept away from the north to the north and the east, but we are cold enough, certainly, for more snow with that trough of low pressure, probably bringing the snow risk primarily to the north. Then another change as we get towards month's end, we start to drag in this very much milder southwest wind. So as we come to the end of the month, we actually, can you believe this, get temperature up to 17 degrees at Aber in North Wales on this day, 30th of January 1929. So within this cold winter, we do get an exceptionally mild day with these really warm southerly southwesterly winds. And that's how we look as we get to the final day of January 1929. Cold month, remember, CT 1.3, but very mild as we end the month with high pressure retreating away into western parts of Russia and low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. You would look at that now, I think, and assume that that's the end of winter, and that's it. The cold weather's gone, and we're off and running into spring. That was not the case, however, because despite January being quite cold, wintry month, actually February 1929 is even colder. And it's even more wintry as well. It actually has a CET almost negative. The CET February 1929 is just plus 0.4. So it has a CET of 0.4, but that is plus 0.4, not minus 0.4. Only 0.5 of a degree, only half a degree off being a negative CET month. There wasn't a negative CET month from February 1895 all the way to January 1940. This, I think, is the one that gets closest, though, within that 45-year window. However, we begin February 1929 on quite a cold note, on quite a mild note as well. So, Harley writes, a cold month, CT 0.4 degrees, and very dry. The month started mild and changeable, but very cold air arrived from the east around a blocking area of high pressure Scandinavia in the second week. Let's see what happens then. Wet and windy as we begin February 1929, and mild as well. Upper air temperatures looking very mild there. Nice pizza slices, my good friend Brian from the Weather Outlook. A pizza slice of mild air there, covering most parts of Western Europe. However, we are losing that southwest wind already. By the 4th February 1929, we're beginning to lose that southwesterly high pressure, beginning to reform just generally across northern Europe. Notice the highs beginning to get going over Scandinavia again. Very cold air is sitting around the back of that area of high pressure, waiting in the wings there across much of northeastern Europe. We're still relatively mild on the 5th of February 1929, but the theme tune from Jaws is starting to play. As the area of high pressure really starts to build up over Scandinavia. That's a 7th. So again, notice the heights are just pulling into the east of us. And again, we have got that cold air sitting over eastern parts of Europe. Is that very cold air going to strike? Let's see what happens. That's the 8th through to the 9th of February. So again, the high pressure is trying to get going over Scandinavia. Low pressure in the Atlantic is battling with that, trying to maintain a generally mild westerly wind. But that's the 10th, and now we are beginning to find the high pressure of Scandinavia blocking off the Atlantic and taking over. The jet stream, the black line being forced southwards. Upper air temperatures are very, very cold just to our east, and we are seemingly poised to start bringing in that very cold air. And by the time you get through to the 11th, here we go. It all starts kicking off. Low pressure is being blocked in the Atlantic. This should probably bring snow to western parts of the country. I would have thought that area of low pressure, as very cold air is beginning to dig in from the east on those southeasterly winds. Trevor Harley writes, there was a wonderful 7 days of frost from the 11th. There were some very low daytime maximum temperatures. Example, minus 5.6 all day maximum temperature at Hampstead on the 12th and the 13th. And Limpney, I think that is, in Kent on the 14th. Minus 6.1 was the maximum in Cranwell, Lincoln on the 15th. Minus 6.7 was the maximum temperature at Buxton on the 13th. And at Roden in Shropshire on the 14th. Some places not exceeding minus 5 for several days. This is a classic 20th century freezer that we have going here. The Thames froze in many places, and there was much skating in the Lake District. Many places had continuous frost from the 11th to the 16th, and at Manson in Kent, the temperature stayed beneath freezing all day, day and night, from the 11th to the 19th as well. So let's see that. That's the 11th. The cold air is being drawn in from the east by this area of high pressure over Scandinavia. That's the 12th. We've got a direct easterly now. Look at that. Classic Scandinavian high, blocking off the Atlantic, bringing wind in from the east, and the upper air temperatures very cold. This is by far the coldest phase of the winter. Minus 10 Celsius icebergs in the west, minus 15 Celsius in the east. Those east winds will be bringing lots of heavy showers to eastern parts of the country. That's the 13th, another bitterly cold day. High pressure over Scandinavia. Upper air temperatures again look really cold, bitterly cold. Minus 15 Celsius iceberg is in the east. This is a classic beast from the east that we have here. 14th, Valentine's Day, 1929, is another very, very, very cold looking day indeed, with again minus 10 to minus 15 Celsius at 850 HPA across most parts of the country. Low pressure is trying to come in from off the Atlantic, trying to bring milder air and rain in from the west. That will turn rapidly to snow. Of course, it bumps into that cold air. So as we go to the middle phase of the month, we've got a big snow event going on here, I think, in western parts of the country. Trevor Harley writes, there was very heavy snow in the southwest on the 16th as a front tried to enter the very cold air. 6 foot of snow on Dartmoor over 15 hours. At Huntington Warren Hole, there was 173 centimetres of snow following a 15-hour fall, perhaps a record level depth for lowland Britain under 500 metres. It was less cold from the 20th, so we'll see how that happens. So, big snow event for the west here in this middle phase of February as low pressure slips away to the south-southwest, blocked by that large area of high pressure. We are losing the severity of the extreme cold upper air temperatures, but they're cold enough still to be producing snow. Got kinks in the isobars, so I reckon we'll probably bring a trough in from the east as well, actually, with this. So heavy snow event in the west and snow showers for more central and eastern areas too. That's the 17th, again, looks very cold. 18th, looking very cold too, although the Atlantic is having a go at beginning to dislodge that cold air, but still the cold enough for snow across many parts of the country. Actually, there's probably a weather system coming in from off the Atlantic into that cold air, producing a snow event. I would have thought a real battle going on there around the 18th, 19th of February. Scandinavian High does not want to release its grip. Remember, anywhere in this green area, in this kind of pattern, could be getting snow. When you're in the yellow area, you'll be getting rain. That could be freezing rain, depending on how cold the temperature is. That looks like a classic sort of snow scenario for the east, and probably a rain or freezing rain scenario in the west. Now, by the time you get through to the 20th, it looks like we begin to draw in and be a little bit milder from the southwest. Trevor Hardy writes it was less cold from the 20th, although the east winds return at the end of the month, and usually, so later in the month, there were frost days on the 26th and 27th down in the south. We'll get to that in a moment. But I think we're into a slightly milder phase now, although I don't think it'll be long before the Scandinavian High gets going again. That's the 23rd, 24th. And yeah, look at that. Scandinavian High's back again. Winds are back into the east again. Cold air is sitting, very cold air, sitting to our east again. So off and running we go into another spell of very cold easterly winds into the final week of February 1929. Again, drawing in those really cold easterlies. There's a -10 cells iceberg in the east. Low pressure, again, trying to come in from off the Atlantic, being blocked. That probably brings snow the more southern, southwestern parts of the country. Come to the end of the winter now and the end of February, high pressure is collapsing and drifting southwards. So still cold, still very frosty. No snow, I wouldn't have thought, but still very cold and frosty within that area of high pressure. But, yeah, it looks like the high pressure beginning to retreat a little bit. Around the 26th, 27th, there's my 10 cells ice on. So that explains why we're still getting ice days, even though we are very late on into February there. Then we go into March, which has a central temperature of 6.2, and is generally, well, it's generally quite a mildish sort of March, really. It's a very sunny and variable month with two outstanding icy spells. Let's have a quick look, shall we? So, I think with this area of high pressure just here, although it looks relatively mild breeze, we're probably bringing quite cold air into that area of high pressure. So that could be like a frosty, foggy scenario, I would have thought. Much of Northern Europe looking really cold again, by the way, with that very cold air sitting just to our east. But overall, I reckon we're just very frosty and whatnot there early on in March. We're probably in a milder scenario now, I would have thought. Very, very anticyclonic March. Here, very, very dry March indeed, and you know, we're going through the month, a little bit wetter and windier there to the second half of the month, but still in the south anyway, lots of dry weather, looking like we end March 1929 on a relatively dry note. And then we go through into April with more sort of northerly winds coming back, so a little bit colder perhaps as we get through into April 1929. Again, continuous sort of high pressure sitting to the north. Of course, now it's not going to be anywhere near as cold with those upper air temperatures as it is back in January and February. But the pattern is still broadly the same, really, with blocking areas of high pressure sitting to our northeast, fending off the areas of low pressure in the Atlantic Ocean. Always that high pressure way to the northwest, always keeping the wind in from a north or a northeasterly direction. That looks like it could be quite cold and wintry there on the 26th, especially so for more northern air, probably some late snowfalls in the north and whatnot, and that's how we end April 1929. Still looking pretty chilly with winds in from a northeasterly or northerly direction, and maybe quite wintry with that too. Right then, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed this historic weather video, everyone, on this bank holiday Monday, looking at 1928, 1929. Definitely February was the highlight. If it hadn't been so mild in that first week, I reckon that would have been a sub-zero CET February. It was very close to it anyway. So, if that cold weather had started just a little bit early and gone on a couple of days long, a couple of days earlier, gone a couple of days long, we probably would have got a negative CET month there. But as I said, we didn't get a negative CET month from February 1895 until January 1940. I think we will have to look at winter of 1895 before too much longer. That becoming up as a historic weather video, I would have thought within the next year or so. But for this historic weather video, for this bank holiday Monday, it's August bank holiday Monday, looking at winter 1928, 1929. That's all for now. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what you thought about it. I wasn't sure whether I'd be able to do this very well. I don't know if I have done it very well. It's been a long, long time since I've done a historic weather video. So I hope I've been alright. I am a bit rusty. I know I am. So hopefully I've done it okay, though. You enjoy the rest of your bank holiday Monday. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and with GavsWeatherVids. The videos will be back to normal, of course, tomorrow. You enjoy the rest of your bank holiday Monday. And for this historic weather video, looking at 1928, 1929, that's all for now. And thanks for watching.